Hi, welcome to our talk tutorial. My name is Mohammed. So today I'm going to do the silent installation of Oracle 11G R2 Grid and RDBMS installation, and this would be on Oracle Enterprise Linux 64-bit machine. So I'm enlisting the minimum software and hardware requirement for this installation. So in software, the machine should have Oracle RDBMS Server 11G R2 pre-install package installed, and CVU disk package we need to install that we can find under RPM directory of uncompressed grid software, and download these three software from Oracle site, like the database software and grid software. And in hardware, the machine should have at least 1 GB of RAM, and swap space is around 1.5 times of allocated RAM. And for enterprise edition, the disk requirement is 4.35 of GB, and for a standard edition it requires 3.73 GB of space. And we need at least 2 adapters for public, private, virtual and scan IPs. So that entry has already been made under etc host file of your Linux machine. And we need to validate a few things before proceeding towards installation of Grid and RDBMS to avoid any error while performing the installation. Like you should check all the packages whether they are installed or not by using rpm-qa grep command, and IP addresses format, like IP address, node name, then node name.local domain and alias name should be there under etc host file. And IP tables should be disabled, like the firewall should be disabled, and SSHD process should be running in order to make a passwordless connectivity between the nodes, and network time protocol daemon should be running. And we have already done the kernel parameter settings, and required privileges is to be given to the grid home and Oracle home that I'll explain in this video. So I'm just logging to the first node, which is vRAC host x1, and we need to ensure the processes are running, like SSHD process, and yeah, it's a vRAC host x1.local domain. So SSHD process and NTPD process should be running. So I'm validating the same, and this should be checked by the root user. So firewall is not running. So SSHD process is running. So I'm switching to the grid user, that is Aura ASM, and checking for the package CVU qdisk package. So this is the cluster verification utility package that is required in order to check all the parameters that needs to be set for the grid installation. So I have downloaded and uncompressed the software under the directory backup software grid. So I'm going to the directory. So here I have the run installer and the response file directory. Okay, so these are the software I have copied from my Windows machine to the Linux machine. So when we install the package like Oracle 11G R2 pre-install package, it configures each and every parameter as per the Oracle guidelines. But still, like if you are going to use another user for grid installation, so we need to set the same values and the same parameter for the grid user. So under etc security limits.conf file, the grid user has to be added, and the same value is to be given to the grid user as we have given to Oracle. So this is all about setting the number of logins the number of logins a user is going to make to this machine, and the number of processes running. So it is already set to the maximum value, the maximum number of processes, and the maximum number of logins can be made on this machine. So that is what we are setting over here under limits.conf. Okay, once done, save the file by pressing the escape key :WQ. Okay, I'm switching over to the second node and checking the same firewall settings and status and the SSSD status, and we'll do the same changes for grid user under etc security limits.conf file. So checking the package cluster verification utility package. And if we don't do these settings prior to installing grid software, so once we run the Cluffy tool, the Cluffy tool is a utility, is a tool to check the readiness of the nodes that is going to be participated in the cluster. So the Cluffy tool checks each and every parameter, like the permission on the grid base, grid home, and all these kernel parameters. So if we miss any of the kernel parameter setting, so it will show the error message. And in order to do a successful installation, the Cluffy tool should pass all the checks. So we have done the settings on node 2. Now coming back to node 1, VRAC host x1. So we need to do the passwordless connectivity setup. passwordless, like to transfer any file or to between nodes, it should not ask any password. It should not prompt for the password. So we are using the Oracle provided utility to set up this passwordless connectivity. And we need to do this for both of the user, for Grid user and for Oracle user. So as of now, we are doing the setup for the Grid user. And this utility is under the uncompressed Grid software SSH setup directory. From there we need to run this. So it's done. So once it is done, it checks whether it's successful or not by showing the date of the other node, the second node. And we can also run this command like SSH, then give the host name and date command. And the files are created under home or ism.ssh directory. So we need to ensure like the same files are there on the second node. So on the second node, I'm switching to ORISM and then going to the SSH directory, and we see like 3 of the files are missing, id_rsa and id_rsa.pub. So we need to copy these 2 files to the second node. So scp and put the file name over there, and then the node name where it is going to be copied, and the location colon the location. So now we see all the 2 files are copied over here. Now if we issue this command ssh vrac host x1 date, it will it's generating the security keys for the first time. Next time when you run the same command, it will not show you the same message because the security keys has already been generated. So it's showing you for the first time. Now we are doing ssh vrac host x2 date. It's showing me the date. So that means the passwordless connectivity has been completed successfully. And this passwordless connectivity is the prime feature for the cluster nodes, like okay. So now we are running the Cluffy tool to check the readiness of the nodes. So Cluffy is under again uncompressed Grid software, run cluffy.sh stage-pre crs inst-n and comma separated host names. So it's checking the nodes. So user equivalence, it is checking for the passwordless connectivity, so which is passed, and it's checking all the IP addresses like public IP address, virtual IP address, the scan IPs, and all the packages installed. Also checking the ASM library configuration, memory check, the swap space and temporary space. So all are passed. And this Grid user should have the DBA group. Should be a user of should be part of DBA group as well, because the primary group for ORISM is oinstall and the secondary group is DBA. Okay, so NTP daemon is also running, so also all checks are passed. So pre-check for cluster services setup was successful. So this should be the message. If it's showing you any error message or any warning, that has to be fixed at the same time, because the Grid installation will not be successful if we miss any of the settings. Now we need to do the passwordless connectivity for Oracle user as well. So switching to Oracle. Okay, we need to check few things. Yes, like I have not uncompressed the RDBMS software, and see if you see the permission is to the Aura ASM or O install. So we need to change the permission of this RDBMS software, the zipped file, to Oracle. So chown oracle :o install is a command to change the ownership of the file. So now it is owned by Oracle. So now we are switching to Oracle user and uncompress these two files. So once we uncompress these two files, database directory will be created, and under database directory we will get the same SSH user setup directory and the run installer to install the Oracle software. So it takes a couple of minutes only to do the uncompress. Okay, so first file is completed. Now uncompressing the second file. So to download all these Grid software and RDBMS software, one should have an account on Oracle Metalink. So create an account on Oracle Metalink, Oracle site, oracle.com, and from there you can download it. And for Oracle Enterprise Linux, you can go to edelivery.com, the cloud side of Oracle, and from there you can download Oracle Enterprise Linux 64-bit ISO file. And this RDBMS software and Grid software should be on only one node. We are not supposed to copy the same software on the other nodes, because we run this run installer from one node only, and later in rack installation it copies all the files, the binary files, to the second node during the installation. So we are setting up the SSH for Oracle user. So under database directory, go to SSH setup directory and run this command. So this SSH user setup.sh will ping the IP address, the public IP address of each node, and once it is successful, it is reachable or available, then it will ask you to enter yes to proceed further, and it asks for the Oracle user password multiple times, 4 or 5 times, to create the keys and authorization files under the home directory .ssh. So again we do the same check, like all these files should be available on the second node, and if any of the file is missing, then we need to copy it from the first node. So here we can see like the two of the files are missing, id_rsa.pub and id_rsa. So we're doing the SCP to the second node for Oracle user. And it's not asking for the password, because it has already done the passwordless connectivity between the nodes, so the password is not required. Now the date, we are able to see the date by SSH read host x2 and date command. As I said, like for the first time on the second node, it will show you some security keys, like RSA key fingerprint is generating. So when you do the same for second time, it will not show you the same. Okay, so now the passwordless connectivity is successful. So the nodes are ready for the Grid installation and the RDBMS installation. And to perform the silent installation, the response file should be configured for separately for Grid and for RDBMS, for database software. So it is available under the uncompressed Grid software and the response directory. The grid_install.rsp is the file name. So, and the grid_install.rsp should be appended by using the root user. So we are switching to root user and going to the directory where it is available. So grid response and grid_install.rsp is the file name. So here we need to configure the parameters, like Oracle hostname, the hostname from where the installer will run. So vrac host x1 is the host from where we are going to install this software. Then we need to enter the inventory location, the Oracle home, Oracle base. So we need to ensure like these directories have already been created, like on these machines. ASM01 app grid is the grid base location, and ASM01 app grid 11204, I'm sorry, ASM01 app 11204 grid is the location for grid home. So I'll show you like the directory structure for grid home. Okay, under Oracle hostname we need to give the host names, like all the host names that is going to be into the cluster. The vrac host x2 also is to be there. Then Oracle installation type CRS config, because we are doing grid infrastructure for cluster, so CRS_config parameter is to be given. So before giving the Oracle base and Oracle home, we need to ensure the directory is created and the required permission is given to the directory. So ASM01 app 11204 grid is for the grid home, and I believe I have not created the location for Oracle home, Oracle base, like which is ASM01 app and grid. So I need to create that, and this should be created on both of the nodes. On the second node also I need to create the same directory structure. and the same permission is to be given. Okay, Oracle Home. And oinstall is the group for Aura ASM. So for this we give the oinstall, and secondary group like our ASM DBA and DBA are the secondary groups for Aura ASM. So here it's asking for another group which should not be like earlier one. So ASM DBA should be given here, or you can leave it blank, but just to avoid any error or any failure occurrence, we need to better to give the group name here, ASM DBA. Sorry, ASM admin. Yeah. So verify the correct name of the group that is given to the Aura ASM. ASM admin is the another secondary group. Then give the rack-scan, that you can check it under etc and etc host file, and 1521 is the default port number on the machine. So 1521 is the port number. And then cluster name, you can give any name like vrac host x-is cluster, you can give. Well, we will check other. Okay, then cluster nodes, like nodes where under the cluster like vrac host x1, and the format is like host name colon the node VIP. Again under etc host file, check the name for the virtual IP. So node 1 -VIP is for the first node, and vrac host x2 colon the virtual IP name for the second node, rack2 -VIP. Okay, here we need to give the network interface list, like as I said, like it requires a public interface and private interface for private IPs, and so since we have created 3 adapters, the bridged one and 2 others are and 2 more adapters we have created. So the ETH0 is for public interface for public IP. So I'm giving the ETH0 colon 192.168.1.0 is the subnet for public interface, and colon 1 is to denote it's a public interface, and then the second private subnet 192.168.56.0, and then colon 2 to denote it is a public interface. And the third adapter is not going to be used, so we put this in the third option. We just mark it as 3 because 3 shows 3 indicates like this interface will not be used. So I forgot to mention the colon 2, so I'm putting the colon 2 for public interface. Okay, so we have given all the 3 interfaces, the description of all the 3 interfaces. So this is going to be stored on ACM. So ACM storage is given, because in the rack we have OCR and voting disk. So all these files should be on shared location. So we should use ASM storage, because without ASM storage shared location, the rack environment cannot be created. and leave it as it is, the normal redundancy for working disk and for OCR. And for data disk group, for all the other files like system data files, and for the sysocs and the temp data files, and for the user data files, we will use a data disk group, and we will keep redundancy as external, because in case if you select normal or high, so in case of normal we require at least 2 disk for the same disk group. One is for the failover group. So we are marking data for data disk group, and keep redundancy to external, just to save space on our Linux machine. Otherwise you need to create two disk strings or 2 disk if you select a normal redundancy. And for high redundancy it requires at least 3 disk for the same disk group. Okay, so I'm giving external, and this AU size is 4 MB allocation unit. This would be extent for the Oracle ASM instance. Because ASM allocation units as the basic units of this AU, the allocation unit is a basic unit of allocation within a disk group. So by default the AU is 1 MB, but we are selecting we are using 4 MB for the extent, for ASM instance extent. And here we need to put the location of the disk we have created for data disk group. So dev Oracle ASM disks, and the VOL01, the disk name we have created by using ora asm command, the create disk, and the disk name VOL01 VL02. So both the disks will be used by the data disk group. If you give only one disk path, then only one, like 10 GB will be the size of data disk group. So in this case 20 GB will be the size of data disk group, and the whole size, the 20 GB, the entire size will be given to the data disk group. Now if you would have selected a normal, then only 10 GB out of 20 GB will be given to the data disk group. So we are saving a space as well. And here we need to give the password, and disk string also will, like, where it locates all these disk, the raw disk for the data disk group. So dev Oracle ASM disk /*. So we are giving the location where it searches for the disk, for the raw disk. And we are skipping updates, so skip underscore updates, and I believe no more changes are required. So we will just save it, and we'll run the response file from by using by ora asm, by the grid user. So we go to the same location, backup software grid and response, and run installer -ignore prereq. It will ignore the prerequisites that we have already checked by using the cluffy utility. -silent -force -response file, give the response file location, and now first it checks all the pre-checks. It does the pre-checks, like the available space, temporary space, and swap space. So it is passed. So we see, like, there is an error. Okay, so I have used more than 15 characters in the cluster name, so the cluster name should not be more than 15 characters. So yeah, here it is, cluster name, then yeah, so I should keep only 15 characters. Okay, count the number of characters, then go back to the prompt and execute the run installer command. Okay, so I believe it executes successfully this time. Okay, so the command will take some time to complete the execution. So it's checking the response file and all the entries we have made. Okay, it shows some error, like insufficient write permission were granted to create this directory. Okay, so we need to grant the privilege 775 to the grid home, the ASM01. So we need to do that. So let me change the permission on both of the nodes and then run the same command again. Okay, it shows another error message, like for the group OSDBA we have given this grid user. So let it finish, like we should wait for some time. It is just a warning, like warning like can be ignored, like it can ignore the warning, but if it is a fatal error, then we need to take care of that. Without resolving or fixing that fatal error, it cannot proceed. Okay, so it's not moving, so we need to fix this ASM system privilege. So going back to the grid install.response file, and we'll check the DBA, the group we have given. Okay, here it is, like we need to change this, or you can leave it blank, like there's no requirement, like it will take your O install for all type of permissions for the groups. Okay, so running the same command. So after the successful execution of this run installer command, we need to it will ask us to run some scripts from the root user. So it will show like that should be run from both of the nodes to configure the cluster resource services. I mean the cluster AD services, CRS. So wait for some time, it will complete the installation. Okay, so the installation has been completed successfully. So we need to run this aura inst root.sh and root.sh from the root user, and this has to be executed from both of the nodes. So I am opening a new putty session to run this, and then only we need to hit enter, and these are some Java errors that we can ignore. So I'm opening a new putty session and log in as root and execute the command. Okay, it's asking to execute the command from both of the nodes. So vrac host x1, first we will run from this node. It's completed. Then we run the root.sh. So this root.sh command will take time to complete the installation. And I'm going to execute it on vrac host x2, the second node. So I'm already open a session for vrac host x2, so running it. So the first aura inst root.sh command, it's changing the permission to this directory asm01 app aura inventory to o install. It's changing the group for this user. I'm checking the log because just to ensure like it does not have any error, so that's why I'm opening this window to check the log. Okay, so it's running. So basically it is starting the cluster ready services daemon and cluster synchronization services daemon, and all the services like CSSD agent, Aura root agent, Aura agent, CSSD monitor. So and again the Aura root agent spawns into OSysMon, ologger D, and diskmon services, ACFS driver services, CTSS daemon services. So it's starting all of them, because in the cluster, like each and every daemon is known as service. Even the database and listener are the services in cluster environment, and all these daemons are controlled and handled by the grid for both of the nodes. So basically it's combining both of the nodes together, and it once we install the database software and once we create the database and open it, so it is monitored by this grid software and by all these daemons. Like, and it also configures the OCR and voting disk. So voting disk basically checks the node availability. Like it pings the node to check whether it's available or not. If it is not available, then it I would say like it exclude that node from the cluster. That is called node eviction. Okay, so this grid infrastructure for a cluster is succeeded. So we can close this window or the putty session and go back to the previous window and hit enter here to complete the installation. Now it's asking to run one more command for the response file, like yeah. So let me run this command too. Okay, so here we need to put the response file name. And we need to do this by grid user, by Aura ASM. Okay, so I'm logged in as Aura ASM and going to backup software grid response file. So we're grid underscore install.rsp. So we run this command here and give the response file name, and so it's basically pointing for the inventory file, for the inventory location. So it's pointing to that directory. It's making the changes in the cluster. So this will again take some time to complete. So once it is completed, we can check ASM instance is created on both of the nodes, like from ps-ef, and we can grab the pmon process and check the ASM instance running on both of the node. So after the completion of this, we will start the installation of RDBMS software. And again, I'll use the response file, or I'll do the silent installation of Oracle software. Okay, so it's completed. So it says mode finished. So now we can hit enter here to come out from the run installer session. Okay, and now we can verify the ASM instances are running, and the cluster services we can check by CRSCTL command. The CRSCTL is status resource -t command we can use to check all the cluster services. Okay, here it is, and it also make entry in etc aura tab file for ASM1 and for ASM2 instance. We can also check that under etc aura tab. And we are giving the CRSCTL directly without using /, and because I have set the path for the CRS. The path is under grid home bin, so it's in the path. So now we see like the aura.asm is showing started, and all the other services, like it's showing me the scan services. So yeah, see, like here we see the scan1, listen underscore scan1 is running from this node, and other two are running on another node. Like on vrac host x1, scan2 and scan3 are running, and scan1 is running on vrac host x2, second node. Now I'm switching to Oracle user to begin the installation of RDBMS software. So we have already done the SSH configuration. So we just need to append the response file and execute the run installer. So let me append the response file. So here install option we need to give. So I'm installing software only. So So we select install DB software only, then Oracle host name, then both of the node VRAC host x1 and comma VRAC host x2, comma separated host names, and group name for RDBMS software is O install. Inventory location is again U01 app Ora inventory. We have already created this directory, and we have already changed the ownership and the privileges to 775 for this U01 directories, and the language is already selected, like EN stands for English, and Oracle home is U01 app Oracle 11204, sorry, product, then DB underscore 1, DB underscore 1. Yeah, this is the Oracle home. We can check this path, otherwise we will again see another error message if the path is not correct. Yeah, the path is not correct, so it should be U01 app Oracle product 11204, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, yeah, it's product then 11204. And DB underscore 1. Yeah, so please validate before giving this value. And Oracle base is U01 app Oracle is the base. Okay, moving ahead, and Oracle DB installation edition should be Enterprise Edition. So Enterprise Edition has almost all the features available, so that's why we are taking Enterprise Edition. So no more changes required. No, like, let me check. Yeah, DB group, or install. You can leave it. The OPER group is not required to give, and the cluster nodes here. So the node names where this software are going to be installed, VRAC host x1 and VRAC host x2. If you have 4 nodes, then we need to put all 4 node name here. So it's one node. This option is for rack 1 node, so we don't need to put any value. We don't require any starter DB. Like, if you remember, like when you, okay, yeah, we can give this option, but we are not creating any starter DB. We are just installing the software, so filling up this is not required. So it's asking for a starter DB character set. That is also not required. You can remove it. Yeah, memory option is false because we are it's not taking any RAM. It is just installing the software on the mount point, and will take disk space. Once we configure the database, then we need to put the memory option. And DB control, starter DB, that is also not required. You can leave it. Okay, so we save this file and execute it from run installer and see whether If it is fine, then it will execute, else it will show us the error. Then we need to fix that. Okay, yeah, the storage type is ASM_storage, but it's again asking for the starter DB, so this is not required. You can leave it blank. Okay, so I'm deleting this. Okay, so we don't need auto update, so put skip_updates. Okay, so let me run this response file and see whether everything is fine or we need to fix some parameter. So again, like from the database directory of the uncompressed software directory, we go and then do the run installer. Okay, we need to go back one directory, then execute this. So as we see, like temp space and swap space is available, so that check is passed. And again, we need to do some more modification, so I'm doing it again because it shows some error. Okay, so you can leave it blank. Enable security settings, that is not required at all. And it may ask you to enter the email address and the password to receive updates. Since we have already skip updates, but we can leave it blank. Or if it shows you an error, then give the email address there. As I've given my email address and any password, like it's not required to give the exact password for your email address. You can give any dummy password you can use over here just to pass the check. Okay, decline security update, it should be true, so I'm putting true over here because we don't need any security updates. So declining. Okay, so I think it is good to run now. Okay, now it's running. So it shows us also shows us the log path. You can open a new putty session and go to that path and check the log, like how it's doing. Like, so I have opened the log file into another putty session and see the like execution, like how it's going. So I'm just checking whether it's creating the boundaries or not, just to make sure like it's working. Yeah, so boundaries are there, it's working. And once it is completed on the first node, then it will copy the same boundaries to the another node at the same location, so Oracle home. So after the successful completion of this RDBMS software, we are ready to create databases on both of the nodes. So for that I'll upload another video and will show like how to install how to create a database in silent mode by using response file, because most of the time we use a graphical user interface or the GUI to create the databases, and we are not aware like what exactly Oracle is doing in background. So to understand understand the background process, like what exactly it's doing, we should install this or create the database by using the response file, or check the logs like what exactly it's doing. So I'll upload another video on that. Okay, so do you see this log copying Oracle home to remote node vrac host x2? It's copying now, so it's completed. Okay, so after the successful completion, it asks you to run the root.sh script by the root user. The installation of Oracle database 11G was successful. We can check it in the log file. Okay, so coming back to this, and yeah, just copy the path and run it from the root user. So this is the last step of the installation. You can check the log. Okay, so it's completed successfully. So I'm doing SSH from root user, so that's why it's asking for the password. So checking the log on vrac host x2. So it executed on this node as well. Okay, so it's completed. you can check the etc aura tab, where we can find the ASM1 and the Oracle home path. So it's done. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Have a good day.